are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome to the show tonight debut author Rebecca Keller, here to give us the inside scoop the night before her very first book comes out, You Should Have Known. Rebecca, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm, thrilled beyond belief to have a book about to open. To walk into the bookstore tomorrow and see it there will be a real thrill. So
Yay!
you should have known is about a woman, a 70-something-year-old woman named Franny Green, who uh, she's in great shape, but she takes a fall, and so she ends up. Her kids kind of prevail upon her to move into an apartment in a retirement apartment. And while she's there, she meets someone named Catherine and becomes really good friends and is excited about this kind of new phase in her life until she realizes that Catherine's husband is the corrupt judge who she blames for the death of her granddaughter and the breakdown of her daughter. So the story unfolds from there with what Franny does with this devastating knowledge.
Ooh, well, that sounds very tantalizing indeed. And I can't wait to get into every delicious detail. But first, I just want to welcome everybody. So, we are going live to 6 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So, no matter where you're watching from, mystery and thriller loving friends, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday. And because Mondays can be murder, we're going to make them a little less painful for you. So, if you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. We're so happy. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask Rebecca about the process of writing this book, about her creative process, about her daily writing practice, about her title, her cover, the story, the characters, any questions that you have weighing on your mind, we will get them right over to her. We are welcoming you from all our platforms. And while everyone's taking a moment to think of their questions, I want to get into some of the amazing praise. So, Publishers Weekly, I'm going to pop this up for us all to read together, notes that this is a, quote, nicely observed and carefully crafted plot. So, let's pause there, Rebecca. Are you a plotter? Did you carefully plot this book?
Well, not from the beginning. I sort of it evolved, put it that way. In revision, I was very careful about the plot and took a lot of time making sure that all the parts fit together. But at the beginning, I was sort of flying blind. The whole pantser versus outliner. I was kind of pantsing it, but as I revised later on, I made a number of changes to make sure that the plot was as tight as could be.
And did the pantsing work well for you? Is that how you would do it again on the next book, or are you a reformed pantser? You're going to do it differently next time.
What my process was, I don't think, I can't imagine outlining a book just from the beginning. Even if I have a pretty good notion, I might write a few, sort of make a series of notes. But once you get into it and get to know the characters, things change. And that's really what happened. I had kind of a set of themes, or kind of a few guiding ideas. But once the characters began to emerge, and once certain opportunity, I'd write something and oh my gosh, when I'd look back on it, I think that's an opportunity for a kind of delicious complication. Then things evolve. So what I tend to do in terms of outlining for the other writers out there, once I get much of the way through a first draft, in order to get up above it and kind of sense of what's going on, then I go back, and it's not exactly outlining it as much as it is just writing down what I have happening so far in each chapter, and each, maybe sometimes scene by scene, and then figuring out how they line up, how they don't, what needs to happen, what's a problem, and etc.
I like how you said you look for, quote, delicious opportunities. Yum. What if those delicious opportunities aren't presenting themselves? What if the plot is not moving forward? What if you're bored reading it? What if you're
Mm.
worried that you're boring the reader? What do you do about that?
Well, I looked to character really, character and place. The setting is really unusual. It's at a it's in an assisted living apartment, and so setting really almost like another character. And I figured in a place like that, people are coming bringing all their histories, all their wisdoms, all their fears. They don't have a lot of time left, but it's a kind of closed, it's a semi-closed environment, and it's very struck me as a very particular kind of moment in people's lives. And it's a small enough town where there's also people bringing histories with one another to this place. So I kind of, once I really got into it, I recognized that I began to just sort of try to tune my ears for things that might crop up. And sometimes when I would do that and look backward, I realized things that were there that I hadn't noticed the first time through. And so then I would try to tease them out and see what opportunities do I need to create for this to be more delicious, more juicy, not just a suggestion, but to really move, to really add some spice.
I love that. I love that. Barbara, welcome to the conversation. She says, congratulations on your book coming out tomorrow. So, Rebecca, how are you feeling? Are you nervous? Are you excited? What's going on over there?
I'm thrilled, and I'm thrilled to see Barbara is an old friend. Hi, Barb. We went to high school together, so it's exciting to see that.
Now, Barbara, did you think this woman was always going to write a book? Were you like, were you sitting in chemistry class thinking, Rebecca's going to be an author someday? Or were you surprised to see her book come out? Let us know what you think. And Rebecca, were you surprised that this book came out of you, or did you always know you wanted to be a writer?
Well, so I'm a visual artist. My day job is I'm a professor. I'm an art professor, which means I'm also a visual artist. And I joke with my students that, I don't get enough rejection and work for no money as an artist. So then I had to start writing novels. I mean, it was a bit of insanity, but I have always had a pull toward making things, to being creative, and obviously as an artist or as a writer. And when I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, the idea of writing a book took me by the throat and wouldn't let go. And it was a different book than this. I finished it and learned a lot, although I'm sure if I went back and read it now, it would be I'd cringe. but because I was learning, but because I'm stubborn, and because I decided that I really, this was something I wanted to do. I wanted to teach myself to do, and I wanted to get it out into the world and to make it be something that people responded to. I just kept plugging away at it. So I don't know if I knew it, but I do know that I'm stubborn, and I'm hardworking, and I'm determined and committed to something. So I figured I had a good shot just because of those things. But the publishing world it's challenging and it's capricious. So, I'm thrilled to be able to have this, happening.
Yay. Well, Barbara says she can't wait to read it. And she shares that you used to bring her art in high school. We're going to need to know more about that. I love that. Sweet Liz, or Sweetie Liz, I'm not sure how Sweet Liz, I bet Sweet Liz, as in Elizabeth, I'm guessing, says, I didn't go to high school with Rebecca, but I am excited for the release also. Yay. We're all excited. Thank you for chiming in, Sweet Liz. And so you are a visual artist. What does that mean? Like a painter?
I started as a painter. I do sculpture. I do a lot of things depending on kind of the nature of the project. But yes, yeah. So
Wow, I think you're our first author. I mean, author who's an artist, our first painter.
Well, it takes a special kind of crazy.
So Are you a oil painter, watercolors? Like what kind
I've
of painter?
done mostly now. I started with oils, but mostly now I do acrylic if I'm making a painting. But I
Wow.
also, use clay. I use all kinds of things depending on the project. So yeah, I'm sort of a multitasker, multimedia.
Wow. This is so cool. This is very, very cool. Barbara's saying, I love that you wrote a book and it is getting known. I love that you guys have been friends since high school and she's showing up for you now tonight, Rebecca. How wonderful.
Well, it's the wonders of social media because we had sort of, lost touch. People move and etc. And on social media, we reconnected. So we haven't seen one another in years, but we kind of keep track of one another's lives. As I think it happens a lot. Social media can be so difficult sometimes, but it does its upsides.
I love it. And I've reconnected with so many people on social media, and it is such a beautiful, fun part of it.
Mhm.
Rebecca, let's talk about some of the praise that your book has earned. So let's get over to Jeannie.
Yeah.
She says, "Who cares about the gentle death of an elderly woman in a retirement community? You will, desperately, as you dive into the marvelous mystery at the heart of You Should Have Known. This book kept me up past my bedtime, frantically turning pages, shocked and delighted by each new twist." So congratulations on that rave review from Abby. Oh my gosh, every time I'm Jeannie. Every time I'm looking at it now, I have to remember Genie in a Bottle, the award-winning author of The Lightkeepers. So let's talk about it. How to keep Abby Jeannie up past her bedtime, frantically turning the pages, shocking and delighting her with each new twist. What do you think the secret to great writing is?
Uh, well, I don't know. There's just one, but in this book, I think people get very invested in the character. It's not a traditional mystery in that it shows up on the first page and then the detective shows up. I love those kind of books. This just didn't turn into that. But I think it's very much, this character is really interesting. People really like her, and the setting is interesting. As I said, it's an unusual setting, and so people are pulled in because they're wondering, in this world, what's going to happen and what's going to happen to this woman. And you don't really know all of, it's common. You don't really know all of her backstory, but you do know that something's in the back of her head, and you can kind of begin to, you get invested enough where you wonder where she's going to go with the knowledge that she discovers about, the husband of her friend.
So I've noticed, so let's talk about the setting, which you have described as a character itself. And
Mhm.
you're so right. We don't see many books. I actually can't think of any off the top of my head set in a retirement community. And I think that's sort of part of a larger cultural conversation about the invisibility of aging, of our elderly. Um,
Absolutely.
which is really interesting to me because I love older people, and I was so close to my grandmother. We spoke up to every day up into and including the day that she passed. I lived with her. I loved her endlessly. I miss her every single day of my life. And old people are really cool. They are just so full of information and wisdom and wit, and they've seen so much, so they always have great perspectives, and I love old people. So why did you set this book in a retirement home? Were you very close to a grandparent? Are you worried about aging? Are you thinking about our cultural conversation around aging? Give us the scoop on this character setting.
Well, definitely, I'm thinking about the invisibility of older people, especially older women. It started with the idea of those. So largely, this novel focuses on on the idea of revenge, and on a essentially good person stepping out of that and doing something kind of reprehensible, or possibly doing something kind of reprehensible. And it occurred to me that one of the so I thought, who would be in what situation could create those kind of stakes? And being old is one of them, because on the one hand, you can probably get away with stuff because you are invisible, right? She recognizes that it's a kind of freedom.
Yes.
And so that's part of it. And the other thing is, in some ways, the stakes are higher because you have less time left. But also, I think in an early draft, I have her saying, "What are they going to do to me? I'm an old lady. If they catch me, if they catch me." So I think so. But at the same time, you know, what she didn't figure on is she can't stop being herself, which is an essentially really good moral person. So she is caught in this. She creates a real problem for herself in trying to fit, and actually kind of generates the mystery that she ends up solving. If that's not too obscure.
I love that. And I like the line, that you created for your protagonist. What are you going to do to me? I'm an old lady.
That's right.
Yeah. And I like the idea of freedom, in that invisibility, because I think we think of invisibility first as something, not positive.
Right.
So that is, really cool to think of.
Right.
To reframe. Barbara's saying, I was an occupational therapist working in an assisted living, so I really can't wait to see how this goes. Oh, Barbara, you're gonna be the first. You're gonna be kept all night like Abby Genie. And
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Respond to that.
Well, one of the things to your point about invisibility, we think that people, because they're invisible or because they're old, they don't have agency, that they can't do anything. And
Ooh.
maybe their scope is more limited, but as you know, with your grandmother, people can do things. And it kind of is a matter of making up their mind if they're going to do it, and finding the wherewithal. But just because they're old doesn't mean they're not capable. And so that in that invisibility, you can do a lot.
Yes, capable of lots of things, and also capable of dastardly deeds. I don't know if you remember, a couple months ago there was an article in the New York Times that really got a lot of traction about a a gentleman, I think he was 86, who had killed someone, this week in Brooklyn. And I think people were so shocked and talking about it because you don't think of someone of that age as a murderer, and yet he was. And then it was later revealed that this was actually his second murder.
Well, I didn't catch that. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So, and maybe he was thinking, I'm gonna get away with this because what are you gonna do? I'm old, So I love
Right.
this.
Yeah.
Barbara saying, when she was working in the assisted living, she wondered about the individual stories individuals had. Right. She wondered about the stories individuals had. Exactly. Because they are a wealth of fabulous stories. And it's so great to
Right.
see you bringing these forward, even in the fictional realm. Y'all, I want to pause and remind you that the book is not even out yet. So Rebecca's coming on today for this very special pre-launch event to give us the inside scoop on You Should Have Known. So you can pre-order tonight. And the good folks at Murder by the Book, our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, will send it out to you tomorrow when the book drops. So here is that pre-order link. So no matter where you're watching from, on Facebook or YouTube, click and order. And you too can immerse yourself in the world of You Should Have Known. And then we can continue the conversation over in Mystery and Thriller Mavens, our free online Facebook group for mystery and thriller lovers, so we can discuss further. Let's hop back to some of this other amazing praise. Helene Tursten, author of An Elderly Lady Must Not Be Crossed, also had some wonderful words of praise for you, Rebecca, raving unputdownable. This plot is so beautifully crafted. Never underestimate an elderly lady. So interesting to know that this plot, beautifully crafted, was actually pantsed, beautifully pantsed, and so great to see your work resonating with so many different authors. Helene is not the only one to rave. Eliza Nellums, author of All That's Bright and Gone, as well as The Bone K, also chiming in with this praise. Let's take a look at it together. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. She says, this book winds and uncoils like a spring, keenly observed, bittersweet and wise, like getting coffee with a lifelong friend. You should be reading. So let's pause there and talk about this. Did you go to an assisted living facility and observe? What was your research process like?
So the research consisted, there were a number of things that I did. Among them, I spoke to a medical professional who, as you know, the main character is a retired nurse. So she has a lot of medical knowledge. And so she's not a disinterested observer in the processes of, care at this place. So I spoke to doctors and nurses who had worked in assisted living facilities. I also, a lot of this came together when my mother entered an assisted living. And so I had an up close and personal view of, and it was a lovely place where she lived. She passed. In fact, that's where she was when she died. But it was a really nice place. But we looked at a lot of them, and it just struck me that it was a very particular kind of place. My mom was in sharp and fine, and the people that she lived in that were in this apartment building were also often very sharp, but had some mobility issue or whatever. And it, like I said, it just struck me that all these people are bringing all their histories. In some cases, they know one another. There were people that she saw there that she hadn't seen in years who were in her town. And so I thought that's a pretty rich soup, a pretty lots of opportunity. I mean, we have all these books about high school, which is kind of a similar thing. But now these people have lifetimes of history. They have families that know one another, and they're in this place, and they're facing the end of their lives, and their families are involved. So it just struck me as a really, a lot of opportunity there to create a lot of things that bumped up interestingly with one another.
I like
I
that.
want to point out, her daughter's a significant character in the book, and I think a lot of readers, a lot of readers are women who are of a certain age where their parents, they're dealing with their parents and their kids, and this book has a fair amount of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it ends up being a group endeavor and a group decision and a group journey.
Right.
We have a mystery user here saying, I love that older people are becoming great characters in fiction. I also read another story titled Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Rayborn. Yeah, so Deanna came on for a special pre-launch event with us in September. And I was thinking the exact same thing, again, in that same way that the retired assassins that took center stage in Killers of a Certain Age were used to now being overlooked, because who the heck would be an assassin over the age of 30, 45? I don't know when the assassination retirement age is, but
When the assassin pension kicks in.
I don't know these things. But yeah, these ladies flipped the script and used that to their advantage in terms of, their invisibility, their elderly aging invisibility to their own advantage, because who would see them coming?
Right.
I was thinking that. I love that you brought that up. Thank you so much. What a great comment, great insight, great comp. Thank you. And I liked how you described it as a rich soup. All of these all of these stories, these experiences of all these people with their rich and varied histories. So thank you for that lovely analogy. Now, Rebecca, some people will be watching later with us. We get a lot of people who can't join us live. So I let people submit questions in advance. So we have a few of those to get to as well. So let's dive into those. Anna would like to know about the title.
Well, the title, this was not the original title. It was not the title I wrote. The publisher, when the publisher got to me with an offer, there were a very, very few notes, actually, and very few suggested revisions, but they did want me to think about a different title. And so we were back and forth a little bit. We spitballed a few, over email. This is kind of an iteration of one of the ones I liked a little bit better, but the publisher really liked this one. So I figured they know their business, and they've been really wonderful to work with. Crooked Lane has been terrific. And so I just, at that point I was like, I guess that's what we're gonna go with. So, they really wanted this title, and I think it's a good title actually. But I it was one of those things where I kept thinking if we had another week, I could come up with one that I felt was like perfect. But
Mm.
that's how life kind of plays out. They were very happy with it. So, and they know what they're doing. They know their business. Sometimes the title that I think sometimes you get so close to it as a writer that you have to trust people who have a little bit more business distance and a little bit more sense of the marketplace. So,
Exactly. Someone would like to know, is this your debut published novel, Rebecca?
yes, it is. It is.
Yay. How
Yeah.
long did it take you to write it?
You know, I don't know if you've had other people say this, but I don't really know when I began it.
Ooh,
Um,
interesting. I
I
have
sort
not.
of kind of started with this idea with a short story, and I sort of sketched it in and had this idea for a short story that it kept sitting in the back of my head, and I kind of thought this could be a book, and so I wrote a version of it. Um, and then had to set aside, as I said, I'm an artist, so it's my first published novel, but it's not my first published book. I've written a lot about art and things, so I had um, another project come up, a couple more publishing projects actually come up around writing about my own artwork or writing about other artworks. So I kept kind of working at it, but these other things absorbed a lot more of my writing time. It continued to marinate. I ended up rewriting the back half of the book like 3 times, in all honesty. So that's the downside of pantsing. I got some feedback that maybe something that the main character does was just too out of character, and so I had to sort of think about if I'm gonna change that, okay, what opportunities does it give me if I change it? If I'm not gonna change it, how do I lay the groundwork to make it not feel like it comes out of left field?
Ooh.
So that's kind of what happened. So, one thing or another, collapsed time, it probably took me, 4 years, but spread that 3 or 4 years over 8 or 9 years.
Excellent. Sweet Elizabeth says, as I approach 60 this month, happy birthday, sweet Eliz. She says, I have been loving all the books like You Should Have Known with great older female characters. Yes. And I think that's a really important point that you're bringing up there, which is that, everyone deserves to see themselves on the page. And that means literally everyone. So, I always think about diversity includes race, color, creed, orientation, identity, age, size, geographic. Like everyone should get to see themselves on the page. And it is so, so wonderful to see women of a certain age on the page. Ooh, now I rhyme. Um, we have another question. Wait, sorry. Is this your debut? Yes, it is. Okay, here's another one. Any advice for others who want to write a novel but unsure how to begin? Great question.
I guess maybe just sort of begin. I don't know if there's any one template. Maybe have a sense of, maybe start with characters. Some people start with plot. Some people start with place. Um, you might want to just sort of start taking notes, see what comes up. Some people, and I think this might be a good way to begin if you're not sure, is just to set aside 10 minutes, 15 minutes every morning and turn off your internal editor and just write. And if you do that for a couple weeks, you'll see what comes up. I think a lot of us um, we're so used to reading things that have been polished that we don't realize that you just need to get words on the page sometimes, and get into the habit of greasing that pathway, and turning off your internal editor, because nobody's first draft is good. I don't care if you're Hemingway. And so your first draft, if your internal editor says this is no good, it shuts down your imagination. So you have to just, kind of bypass that by just, getting things on the page. And then after some time, things will start to emerge, I think.
That's actually a really, really good point about we're so used to seeing highly polished, finished works. And because nobody shares their, in the words of Anne Lamott, crappy first draft, and I'm softening that.
Right.
And the crappy first draft is real crappy. It's real lousy. It is messy. It is
Yes.
ugly. It is grammatically incorrect. It doesn't make sense. It has no plot. The characters are not believable. The names are stupid. The dialogue sucks. Like it is very, very messy. And so I think
Yeah.
Rebecca's advice to just start is really good. I think another one is write the book that you want to see, in the same way that Rebecca wanted to see characters of a certain age and a book set in, or an assisted living facility that wasn't out there. So she created one. So what books do you want to see? What characters do you want to see? What settings do you want to see? What stories are you not seeing that you would like to create? Or how can you tell a story that has been told 1,000 times in a fresh new way, using the voice and the experience and the knowledge that only you have, and what can you bring to life? Because everyone has something that only they know. And I think the other important thing to remember is that, everybody's experience is exotic to someone else. Because I think we all think, oh, well, my life's not that interesting, but it's very different than anyone else's life. There's also a lot of incredible resources. If you're interested in writing a thriller, there is Thriller Fest in New York, May 30th through June 4th, with craft classes, writing classes, how to sell your book classes, a chance to pitch the top 65 agents in New York one-on-one. So I'll put that link in the comments as well. That is thrillerfest.com. So if you are interested in writing a mystery or thriller, you should check that out. There's also a lot of other online amazing classes. So check all of these things out. I love the idea of an internal editor. Thank you. How do you, because I struggle with that too, Rebecca, how do you turn it off?
Oh, it's hard. I work with this with my students too. Artists have this exact same thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think you just overwhelm it. That's what you give yourself 15 minutes and you force yourself to write for that 15 minutes. It's an eternity. It's an eternity. and then you do it again. And then maybe after the third time things start to come out. And you might then, look and circle words that you like, or circle ideas that have come up. And it might start to unfurl a little bit, and to open up like a flower, where you start to get things feel a little looser and a little, less constrained, because it's so, if you tell yourself, I'm going to make a great work of art, I'm going to make a novel, that's like saying there's a mountain and now I'm going to climb it without any tools or practice. And I don't know the pathway, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. So sometimes I think you just take it in small chunks and just start and develop kind of a habit, a practice of doing it, where there's no consequences. You can you can be a fool. Nobody will get. And when you make that promise to yourself, then you can kind of shut down the voice that is saying you can't do this, or that's no good, or or it's supposed to sound this way. So you end up writing stuff that sounds like a half-baked, copy of something.
Really good advice. Really good advice. I'm loving this conversation. Here is that link for the Thriller Fest. If anyone's interested in writing mysteries and thrillers and working on their craft, working on pitching agents, here is that link. It's thrillerfest.com. All right, y'all, we are actually over time, but time flies when you're having fun. So here again is that link again to pre-order Rebecca's book. And the good folks at Murder by the Book will send it out tomorrow when the book drops. So exciting. Rebecca's debut mystery out now. You should have known. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on and joining us and giving us the inside scoop on your process, your art, your creativity, your advice for writing. What a pleasure to host you. And congratulations. Happy Pub Day tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening and for sending in and for buying the book. And I'm looking forward to hoping people like it.
Yay. All right, y'all, go get a drink, go get a snack, and I will see you at the top of the hour with senior librarian and the founder of Dueling Detectives, Tabrizia Jones. She's giving us her hot picks for summer reading. See you then.
Thank you.